Hey everyone, thank you so much for tuning in. Welcome to the Half Hour Podcast. I'm Bryan, the creator of Half Hour. My goal here is simple: to add real value to your day, to help you learn, to help you lead, and to help you level up in your leadership journey. Whether it's a new perspective, a real-world example, or something you can put into practice right away. To check out my past episodes, go to itshalfhour.blog/podcast. Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Half Hour. Today I'm going to be talking about clarity, and I recently wrote an article about this on Half Hour. You can check it out in the link in the description, called The Cost of Clarity. And clarity sounds like such a simple thing. We all want it in our teams, in our work, in our leadership. But the truth is, clarity always costs something. It takes away the wiggle room, it demands our presence, and it can feel uncomfortable in the moment. I was recently reminded of this in a rehearsal where I was cueing a scene, and I realized I'd been talking for nearly 3 minutes straight without listening or anything else. I was explaining, clarifying, anticipating questions before they were even asked. The change happened smoothly, but I felt it. The drain of spending more words than the moment really needed. That's the cost of clarity. Energy, attention, and intention. The best leaders know when to spend it and when to save it. Today, we're unpacking what that cost is, why it matters, how it shows up, and how you can practice it without burning yourself out. So if you're interested, please stick around, and please don't forget to like, subscribe, share it with your friends. Stick around. All right, so the cost of clarity. The cost of clarity is really a choice. It's not an accident, and it's not necessarily something that we just do mindlessly. It doesn't just happen because we mean well, but it's a result of the choices that we make, and we're choosing to be a carefully communicative leader, right? We all want to be clear. We all want to make sure that we're giving everyone the information that they need. But I think that there obviously is some cost in that, and that's really what I want to talk about. So when you're clear, you are removing the ambiguity and you're creating alignment a lot faster, which in some cases is really great. And it saves time and it reduces errors. Unclear direction often leads to hidden rewrites, things that you have to do over and over and over and over and over again, right? And especially when you're on a deadline, that's absolutely something you don't want to do. You don't want to have to do double work. You don't want to have more frustration, and you don't want to have to continuously fix things that should just be done on the first pass. So choosing clarity means that you're deciding in advance who needs what information, in what format, and what the tone is, and all that sort of stuff. A perfect example of that is like whenever you're talking to your team about how you like rehearsal notes to be put into the report, or how you like specific problems to be communicated or solved whenever they come up. Things that you know about. Maybe it's things that the director likes. They like a specific kind of tea, or they like to do show notes in a specific order, or whatever the thing is that you might already know. Of course, you're going to communicate that to your team. You're going to say, hey, the rehearsal notes, I like them to be in this format. This is, how I'd like them to be done. Otherwise, you're going to have to go back every fucking night, and you're going to have to change that all the time. And it's more frustration, and it's more time, and it's a whole bunch of things. So, of course, you're going to spend that clarity, and you're going to spend the time to explain to your ASMs and your PAs, hey, when you put a note in, please put it in this format. This is the order that I want everything in, and it sort of just helps keep everything clear. The next thing is that the cost of over and under explaining. Whenever you over explain something, or if you're under explaining something, there obviously is a cost to that. Over explaining can signal a lack of trust, and it could be a sort of sense of self-protection. Perfectionism can obviously play into that. It can drain your energy, and it can slow your momentum, and it can allow you to focus on things that you don't necessarily need to be focused on. Whenever you're overly protective, or you're analyzing how every little thing is put in the rehearsal report, or how every little thing is communicated, or hey, that's something I should be communicating about. Maybe there's ego in there. I think that there's a lot of things that can go into that. Under-explaining forces others to do your job, essentially. Fill in the blanks, assume things. Maybe they're going to make mistakes because they're just going off the best information that they have. So it leads a lot to mistakes. It leads to confusion. It leads to bad team dynamics, disengagement, people not wanting to work for you, not liking to work with the team. Maybe they're going to leave the team. I think there's a lot of things that can go wrong whenever you don't clearly explain what's happening, how you like things to be, setting expectations and boundaries, all that sort of stuff. The goal it's not about balance. It's not about, having the clarity and the non-clarity things be in perfect balance, just to be balanced. It's knowing your team well enough to choose the right level of detail. Some people, I think this sort of goes to micromanagement a little bit in a way, which if you're interested, I wrote an article about that called The Micromanagement Myth, and talking about how it can be a tool. But I think it sort of goes to that, where it's like some people need a little bit more direction and some people need a little bit more clarity and what do they want it to look like. And Brene Brown puts this really great, and she uses the term painting done, and sort of talking through when you say, hey, I want you to go make a props list. Okay, well, certain stage managers want prop lists in a particular format. They want a certain level of detail. They might want prop numbers. They may not want prop numbers. Do they want page numbers of the script? Do they not want page numbers? And so sort of understanding what that PSM wants, and understanding what their expectations are, so you can do the job that they want. And so in a way, if you're, I think this is a great example of if your PSM or your team or whoever is not being clear, I think it's a way that you can add clarity to someone who's not being clear enough, and clarifying the expectations of the task and of what they need done, what you're working on, and what the project is. I think it goes both ways in terms of being clear and unclear. And the last thing I want to talk about is how you build clarity as a practice. Clarity improves through our intentional practices. It's not just our experiences and hearing other people talk and us talking, and it's just that's it. So develop a few go-to phrases or structures that you can consistently, in high-pressure environments, use with your team and know what to expect. And I just gave a really great example of that, of painting done. What does that look like to you? What does it mean for this to be done? Another thing that I use is say more. If I'm not really sure, or if I'm making an assumption about what someone wants, and maybe I don't know, or maybe they're being ambiguous, I'm curious, and I'm like, can you say more about that? Like, what do you mean? I think that's a really important way to help build clarity as a practice. The next thing is to create space for feedback. Feedback is so important. I mean, I think it's one of the best ways that we can grow as leaders, but create space for feedback for clarity. Ask questions like, if you had to relay this right now, how would you say it? And figure out where things, where the gaps are, and what do you need to say more of, so it's a little bit clearer. Or, I think that the more that you are taking a show, the more you're show calling, you start to figure out, okay, I need to say my standbys so far in advance. I need to say standby, lights 10, go. Figuring out what that rhythm is, and anyone who's a stage manager who's ever teched or called a show understands that. But I think it's the same way when it comes to how we communicate, the questions that we ask, and setting expectations and figuring out how that clarity is, that there is a specific cadence and rhythm and timing to everything. And I think that figuring out what those things are to build a practice for essentially communicating. The last thing is protect your bandwidth by choosing when and how to be clear. that we have so many things that we have to focus on. Not every battle is a hill that we want to die on, and we have to be careful that we're not constantly being over communicative all the time. It's not our job to do everyone else's job and to give them information. Sometimes it's okay to just let them figure it out. Like, especially if it's something that's simple, it's like, okay, they're going to figure it out. Like, they're going to go here and then they're going to go there. And yeah, it might take them like 15 minutes, but I gave them the information and they're just being lazy and they'll figure it out. Or they'll come to me and they'll ask, hey, I can't figure this out, or I can't find this. Can you help me with that? It's not necessarily our job to do that. In my personal opinion, that's me. So I think that, you have to be protective of your time. You have to be protective of all the things. Otherwise, people are just going to come to you and they're going to just ask you a bunch of shit all the time, and you're just going to be constantly answering questions. So in closing, clarity isn't free. I think that's pretty clear. It costs you your energy. It costs you attention. It costs you intention. It costs you time. But silence or ambiguity, it will cost you even more than that, because you are going to have to do double, triple, quadruple the work to make up if you were just clear in the first place. So the work of leadership, it's not just about being clear. It's knowing when the cost of clarity is worth the payment of that. And when it is, that investment pays off in trust, efficiency, and confidence in what y'all are doing as a team. So I hope you enjoyed this episode. Like I said, I wrote an article about this called The Cost of Clarity on Half Hour. Check it out. It's in the link description. And I will see you next month. So in the meantime, I would love it if you would like, subscribe, and share.